inspiring stories about their journey to Islam with us. And today is no different. Joining me in studio right now is Sister Laila Martah. She lives in Johannesburg, Florida, and she is married. She has been married since 1996, and she has 2 sons. She is a white South African, grew up in Pretoria and moved to Johannesburg, Hillbrow, and now lives in Florida. And I'm not going to give you all of that information because that is for me to know and for you probably to ask Laila on your own. But Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and Jazakallah for joining us.
Wa alaikum salam.
Now, first things first, what led you to Islam?
In all honesty, I must be honest, my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Pretoria in a conservative kind of community. Not conservative, like overly conservative, but just the way life was. I attended school with white kids. Friends were all white Christian, so very much the same kind of people everywhere. My father and my mum, however, were the rebels of their family. So they met and they eloped to Cape Town, and they lived with hippies for a couple of years. And in doing so, my dad met, people of different walks of life, especially, in Cape Town, the Malay community. And my dad had a lot of friends who were Muslim. Likewise, he had friends of every religion. My dad was someone who enjoyed speaking to people, getting to know people. He had an inquiring mind. And I grew up with that. So I grew up with my dad having friends from different cultures, different races visiting us. We'd go visit them. So that was very different to my cousins, my friends, my family. And it set the pace for me being open to people being different. And as my dad was, I also enjoyed speaking to people, learning about them, what makes them tick, what makes them different, learning about their cultures, learning about their lives. And from an early age, I used to attend church with my family, and I was in church 4 or 5 times a week, I suppose you could say. And I was very involved because it was a family-orientated church. My gran went, and I'd go with her. But I always had the ability to understand that this was my life and other people were different. And because we had people who were different in our lives, it was an interest that grew from a young age. And then, as you get older in the churches, you go through your confirmation and that. And I readily accepted that, and I threw my heart into it. But slowly but surely, I started having questions. And I one day approached one of the priests, and he said to me, you're a child of God, and you mustn't ask questions like that. And I was like, but why has God given me a brain, to inquire and to find out? But I was studying with a friend of mine who was also in the same church, and she was very conservative, I guess you could say. And us being in the same faith, we had a kinship. So I felt almost like an obligation to be to match that kind of religious spirituality. And in the meantime, I had like these questions going on. So I loved the library, and the library was the only option then. There was no like internet and that kind of thing at that stage. And I would go to the library, and I'd get out books about different religions. And one day I came across a book. It was a concise book with all the different religions, and it listed, all the different beliefs. And I read through it, and I was like, okay, Judaism, maybe because it's one of the Abrahamic faiths. So it felt more comfortable to me than say something that was not Abrahamic, But I had a few questions and a few issues and that. And then I read about Islam, and it just made sense to me. It was the sense and the logic that appealed to me, that there was no I know it sounds terrible to say, but like no hocusy pocusy kind of things. Everything is a reason, and there's a logic, and everything is divinely it's divinely written as such, to put it that way. There's proof of Allah's word to us. There's proof of what is in the Quran, what is in the Hadith, and that appealed to me. But I was in the church, and I was kind of obligated to, because of my involvement with different aspects of the church. I was there, and I had these questions and that. And then we moved to the south of Johannesburg, and I was taking the bus every morning through to the Technikon where I was studying. And I met a Muslim sister on the bus. We'd get on at the same bus stop, and it was wonderful to have it one-on-one with her. And I'd ask her questions, and she'd chat, and I learned so much from her. And my dad being very open, my dad knowing a lot about religions, I could speak to my dad, and he had friends who were Muslim and Hindu and Buddhist, and my dad grew up Catholic, but he was like agnostic. He had no belief as such, but he had a clarity of mind. So nothing was emotional for my dad. Like, sometimes you speak to people about religion and it's very emotional. My dad had no emotion. So he would lay out the facts for me. And one day I said to my dad, I was about 17, and I said to my dad, how would you feel if I become Muslim? And my dad was like, oh, it's better you become vegetarian because I'm not giving up my pork. And, I guess it just kind of like laid the pace that it would be okay. And I carried on and I studied, and I had no sort of like bars to my inquiries in that. And it was in 1995, and I said to my friend on the bus, I said to her, how would I convert? Because what I read, what I'd say to you, you have to do your shahada and that. And I said to her, but because I come from a background of being Christian, and I've been through those like ceremonies, I needed something that was like a little bit more, like that I felt could be the end to one chapter and the start of another. And we were chatting. She told me what to do and that. And then it was the Easter holidays. And in the Easter holiday, I took the bus one morning, and I met a gentleman at the bus stop, and it started raining. So he let me stand under his umbrella, and I was reading actually a book about Islam. And he said to me, oh, wow, I'm actually Muslim and I'm from Morocco. So I was like, okay. And we got chatting. And then he said, can you come, you'll come and visit me a little bit, and you'll bring me some, like a few like little ornaments from Morocco, and we can chat about Morocco. And he visited the one day, and he had his friend with him, and he ended up being my husband, So how it worked was that I had seen from my theory from the books, it had been Islam by book. And then from my friend on the bus, it was maybe from a Malay aspect. From Technicon, I had the Indian Muslims, I felt like I couldn't really go to them and ask them more because they were quite a tight-knit community. And then we also had a lot of African Muslims as well. And although I was friends with some of them, again, it was, friends to the point that you discuss, classes and, studies and that kind of thing. And when it came to like religion, I felt, can I talk? Can I ask, But meeting my husband, it was wonderful from the way that I got so if we can call it like the Arab perspective as such. But my husband being the way that he is, he knows the deen and he knows what's right, but he had no expectations. So like my father, it was factual. So when I spoke to him and I asked him questions, he would answer he'd answer me. And in so doing, I didn't just learn about Islam by the book or by theory, but through his living. And then, he ended up staying and we got married, and so my knowledge of Islam just grew and grew. But just after I went back to the holiday was over, and I said to my friend, actually, I've decided I'm going to convert. And I went to the African Muslim Association, and I went there and I converted. My husband went with me, still thinking that he was going to go back to Morocco. So he was just there as a friend, as a support in that, And as I say, it just from there grew. And I now look at myself and I think I see myself as I'm just Muslim. I'm not a revert. I'm not a convert. I'm not an ex-Christian. it is who I am now.
What challenges did you face at home and outside? Now, just hold that thought. We'd just like to take a quick break, and we'll get back to you with that question.
You are listening to Mariam Makwanda, live on Salam Media.
Penny Appeal are doing something special. They're giving you the chance to make sure that 100% of your zakat is going to help people who are in desperate need. So this year, give 100% of your zakat to poor and needy people with Penny Appeal, and reap the rewards of fulfilling this beautiful pillar of Islam. Penny Appeal. Small change, big difference.
Spread the sunshine and make mealtimes sunshine delicious Sunshine D, the versatile margarine and fat spread that is perfect for spreading, baking, and cooking. Need inspiration? Visit nowwecooking.co.za.
What makes Randery Jewelers the optimum place for your memorable gift? Is it our range of exclusive, high-end, luxurious jewellery? Or is it our master craftsmanship of all your bespoke jewellery needs? We believe it's because at Randery Jewelers, we know just how to make your special moments last forever. Whether it's for a wedding, anniversary, or just a simple gift to show your love, trust Randery Jewelers to make it special. www.randeryjewelers.com. Make your moments last forever with Randery Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
What are some of the challenges that you faced?
For my family, it was basically my aunts and my uncles and my cousins. And there I was, church going, same as them, and suddenly they heard from family, oh, wow, she's not Christian anymore. She's not going to church. They pulled away in a way, and I felt it, because although we're a big family, not exceptionally close, but I would sometimes hear from my cousins, and then I'd hear from my aunts, the stories that were relayed about when my husband and I got married and we had children, how they're going to grow up and what's going to happen to them, and things like that. So it's a little bit of prejudice,
Yes.
from my family. But over the years, my aunt, a few years ago, was in hospital, and my husband and I went to her, and she said to me, she's so sorry, actually. She was so doubtful when I ended up getting married and, marrying this foreigner who's not even Christian, it's like a big thing. But he ended up doing so much for her and for the family. And she apologized. She said to me, no, she's so sorry that she ever thought what she did and said what she did. I didn't push it. I didn't want to know what they said because I'd heard enough already. So from that way, it was challenging. From the people that I went to church with, that was also very challenging. I also heard stories about things that they said about me, said about my husband. I think it was normal because, there I was living a life that everyone was accustomed to, just part of the pack, and then you break away. This was just in 1995, not long after, the first democratic elections, and people still had that idea of that, I'm white, why am I doing this? Because all Muslims are not white.
Yeah.
So it was putting up with prejudice about race and about racial issues, religious issues. Alhamdulillah, my mom and my dad were very accommodating, very accepting. I'll never forget the one year it was Ramadan during Christmas. And my dad always had like this Christmas tradition of, having a lunch and having trifle. And my dad actually said, what, this year we'll just have supper and trifle and that kind of thing, and buying the halal meat for us. So, alhamdulillah, my father and my mom were very accommodating, and, they accepted it just as, part of it. And I think it's because my mom and dad grew up with friends who were Muslim. And like some people, it's sad to say there were whites who had never, ever even spoken to someone who was non-white, other than just buying something from them at the shop, and their only contact with, say, a Muslim was maybe buying samosas from the lady, in one of the shops that sells samosas. So for them, having now suddenly someone who was taking on this religion that's so different, people could either be quite prejudiced or they were very curious. Then as a Muslim in the Muslim community, the challenges were almost like having to prove my Muslimness to the Muslims.
Yeah.
And that, that was challenging, that I sometimes wasn't the right color. I didn't say the right things. I didn't use the right terms, So like the first time someone said to me, G, and I was like, what's G? Now what language is this? Or, the namaz rooms. And I was like, what's namaz?
I have the same challenge where my niece is learning at one of the schools. And one she came home and said, she sneezed and she's like, Maf. And I'm like, what's mouth? And she's like, it's when you sneeze. I'm like,
Yes.
oh, okay.
So besides having to learn the Arabic, like the Arabic terms, I sometimes felt like I'd say to my husband, is this now Arabic or is this something else,
Mm-hmm.
And because I didn't always use those terms, people were like, oh, you're not Muslim enough,
Mm-hmm.
or you don't dress like them, or you don't, kind of thing. And it was challenging in the way that I had my own cultural identity. I could adhere to the religious laws, I could adhere to the hadith, I could adhere to the Quranic laws, but I had my own culture.
Mm-hmm.
I had my own traditions. My husband had his, and as we had sons and that, we've got our own like little melting pot of traditions and that. And still now it's challenging when people, invite me somewhere and I say, you know what, we don't quite do that. Like, when we break fast, we don't do the samosas and that kind of thing, but can I bring with a cup of coffee, for us kind of thing. And like, so, but you know what, I just, I smile through it all and I graciously accept, and I learn. If I don't understand something, I ask the people, and then I give them my point of view. I'm not shy to say to someone, look, don't think because I don't wear an abaya, I'm not Muslim. I am, my Muslimness is my identity. I don't have to prove it to you.
Yes.
And that helped, that I just took that kind of attitude of don't care.
That's true. I mean, we also, sometimes as Black people, Muslims, we're always judged or we have this Muslimness vibe that we have to go through, or othering and belonging, like we don't belong here, or because we do things different. But, Islam is a religion for everyone, for all. And we embrace the religion and we shouldn't forget who we are. As at the end of the day, we also people who have embraced a religion. We've taken on a religion. We want to learn something different. It's the direction that Allah has set out for us. But what I often tell people is that, I'm not different from you. Just like you are Black and Christian, I can also be Black and Muslim. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And you find Christians of different races, and they're also Muslims of different races. So let's move on to the issue of terrorism. It has been quite there when it comes to Islam. They like this, according to some people, Now, what do you tell people when they ask you, why have you converted to a terrorist religion?
Sure, there was quite an issue in the 9/11 where everybody then became aware of the Muslims and what they did, to America. And there was even a stage I was talking to someone sitting, but Laila, it's so easy, just don't wear your scarf.
Yeah.
Because I felt a change in the air, if you can call it as such. We were staying in the south of Joburg at that stage, in an area that was very multicultural, there in Rosettenville. So it was very multicultural, but still a lot of Portuguese families, Lebanese families, my own family, for instance. So when they saw me with my scarf, it was a visible reminder to them of who I was, and to them that represented Muslims, terrorists. So I'd often have people say to me, and it happened on a few times going to the shops in my own family, my one cousin said to me, how can you, take on this religion, that's like full of terrorists? And, again, my bookworm years came into, good health, good health. Then I was like, oh, but you know what? Do you know how much damage has been done by Christian fundamentalists? How much, what happens politically to people? What politically what people do, and those people aren't even Muslim and that. So, again, stop, just assuming everything, And is still now, and I talk to friends who have also converted, and we've all been through the thing of people saying, how can you take on a religion and practice a religion that promotes terrorism? However, social media is a huge help because, at everybody, I won't say, well, not everybody, unless you live under a rock. These things pop up on social media, in the news, about how this is not what Islam is, and that helps. But again, it's fear. I think it's fear, and people see that as a Muslim, I'm not scared to wear my scarf. And I'm not scared to be identified as being Muslim. And that fear of meeting someone like me or like you or like our brothers or our husbands, fathers, sons, who are maybe not afraid to put on a kurta on a Friday and go to mosque. We're not afraid to practice our religion in the onslaught of these terrorist ideas. That makes people more scared, you know?
Yeah.
So you work on it, and I try to say to people, okay, look at it, you know, you're going to see it in that way, but look at the good that the Muslims are doing. And again, with social media, people see, you know, like the Muslim organizations, what they're doing, they hear what they're promoting. And I think people are slowly starting to understand that is it's not related to Islam, you know?
Yeah.
But it was something, you know, as I say, after the 9/11 attacks, that I think most of us had to deal with.
I know. After the 9/11 attacks, I was younger, so we didn't really comprehend much about the situation and what was really going around in our communities. We would just continue as normal. But you know, as we grow up and as you grow older, and people talk about terrorism, when you have people like Donald Trump making it like, you know, Muslims and terrorists, you know, they go hand in hand. So you should beware, you should do this, you should do that. And then you also get people like, I forgot his last name, but he goes as Dr. Craig something. And he's not a Muslim, but he always brings out the similarities in the religions like Islam and Christianity, and tells people like, well, you know what, we're really not different, and Muslims aren't really terrorists, Muslims aren't this, and Muslims aren't that. And he basically, his what can I say, dispelling the misconceptions about Islam, and he's not even a Muslim. So alhamdulillah for social media, for having such platforms where non-Muslims can tell the world about Muslims and Islam. But also as Muslims, we should really live Islam and not just tell people. We should show
That's the
Islam.
thing, yes. And that's what I try to do. In the face of all these terrible things, you know, being said about Muslims, I try to remain a good example. And I think it's what's important, not important, but when you, as a Muslim woman, when you put on your scarf, I'd say to my husband and my sons, when we go to the shops, people don't notice what they do, but they notice what I do. So I make sure that I live my religion. So I speak kindly, I'm tolerant, I'm helpful, because that is the face of Islam that I want people to see, because that is what attracted me.
Yes,
you know?
definitely.
And I think I would say it's working, it's helping, along with social media and along with, you know, Muslims being in every aspect of life. So I'm sure in today's life, everybody has either worked with a Muslim or they knows a Muslim, you know, maybe like as a neighbor or someone that travels on the taxi. And as Muslims, if we show the good of our deen, it's the only way we're going to dispel all those bad, negative things that people like Donald Trump and the naysayers of the world are saying. You know, we have to show the good.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath